Confidence. My name is Trish and I will be your singing teacher. Today we are talking everything about setting yourself up for singing. That is everything that happens before we vocalize. So without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Let's first talk about alignment. This is how you hold yourself while you are singing. Some people might know this as posture or standing straight. I don't tend to use those words as to me they feel stiff and tense, whereas alignment has an air of flexibility and movement about it. So I use alignment. Let's have a look at what good alignment for singing looks like. Your feet are hip width apart and flat on the floor. Your toes are not curled, they are just sitting comfortably on the floor. Your knees are loose, not locked. There is movement in them. Moving to your hips, they are not tucked or stuck out. They are sitting comfortably on top of your legs. Moving up to your chest. Your chest is not out or sunken. Imagine you are trying to get the sun on your chest. That's the feeling. Your shoulders play a part in this, so let's move to them. Your shoulders are slightly rolled back, not up by your ears, but slightly rolled and down, which allows for the chest to be slightly raised. Your neck is long. It is comfortable and loose. There is no tension. And your head sits comfortably on top of that. So instead of thinking straight, I want you to think tall. I like to imagine that there's a string attached to the top of my head and someone is pulling on that string. And it is elongating my body. My body is being lengthened by that person pulling on that string. And then at the same time, from my waist down, I'm feeling a press. I am pressing gently into the ground. I'm imagining that I'm trying to leave a footprint where I'm standing. Now, this isn't a push, a real strong press that you're going to tense up your legs. It's a feeling of readiness, springiness, like you're about to start a race. So this is a really important feeling for singing, to have that readiness, that movement, that flexibility in your lower half, so to give you better support for your singing. So when you are setting up your alignment, your top half is feeling really tall and your bottom half is being pressed. It's feeling really grounded, springy, ready to go. So you have this push-pull feeling happening in your body. It sounds contradictory, but I promise you it really works in practice and it will do wonders for your singing. So remember, when we're setting up alignment, we want a push and a pull. Let's talk breathing. When we breathe, we want to breathe low, just below your chest cavity. So your stomach is going out and in, out and in. So we need to let go of holding our stomach in. We need to let everything go and let the muscles fully expand and then contract. When we breathe high in our chest, that causes our chest to rise and sometimes our shoulders to rise as well. This is going to cause tension in the neck, which will lead to damage, and you won't have good control over your voice because you need low breathing and low support to have full control over everything that you do vocally. Let's just discuss the diaphragm. I know I was taught about using the diaphragm and breathing and supporting and singing in general. And I know many people were taught this as well. It is something that's been in commonplace practice for singing for years. There have been many recent studies by vocal scientists and voice specialists about the diaphragm and the role it plays in singing. And they have come to the conclusion that it's impossible to sing with your diaphragm. Your diaphragm is a passive member in the singing process. It is a dome-shaped muscle that sits below the chest cavity and above the abdominals. And all it does is when you breathe in, it expands, and when you breathe out, it contracts. That's it. It's passive. It doesn't do anything to help you with support. It doesn't help you breathe any better. It just goes out and in, out and in. So therefore, we need to move away from using it as somewhere to aim our breath. Just instead, think low, breathe low. Allow your stomach to expand and contract rather than using your chest. Low is better. Low helps you support and sustain your singing. And one last thing about breathing, make sure you're managing the amount of breath you are taking in. And when I say managing, I mean don't take a massive breath. Taking a massive breath overexpands, and then you are already tense when you start singing, and then you cannot add support on top of that tension. You're going to cause strain, and that strain is going to come up to your neck. Again, strain in the neck starts to cause damage in the larynx and vocal folds, which is exactly what we don't want as singers. So when we breathe in, we need to take as much air as our body feels like it needs to take in. Our body instinctively knows how much air it needs to get through it. We do it in conversation all the time. When we take a breath in conversation, we naturally know how much air to take in to sustain us through the sentence that we want to say. It's the same in singing. So trust that your body knows how much air it needs, and then you manage the out breath. You manage how much air you let out at what time. If you're still having trouble, or you've been having trouble with managing your breath, I suggest you do something like a breath pattern. This is when you take your music or your lyrics and you mark on the lyrics where you breathe. This is going to take the guesswork out of breathing until you can actually get it habitual and natural. So I will be doing a video later on about breath patterning and vocal mapping, so watch out for that. But in the meantime, mark where you think you should be breathing and where it makes most sense lyrically and musically, and where it's going to help you the best to make sure that you can sustain a breath through a phrase. All right, let's talk support. There are 3 types of support that I want to talk about. 2 of them are really important. The third one is like an added extra bit that you would only use in very certain specific circumstances. The first one is called suspension. This one happens naturally. We don't have to think about it. It is a pause between the in-breath and the out-breath. So you breathe in, there's a pause, and then the out-breath. Again, as I said, it happens naturally. We don't have to think about it. We just need to become aware of it and then use it to our advantage through the out-breath. Use that suspension, that suspense through the out-breath. Suspension is used in comfort zone singing. This is very easy singing. Everyone has a different comfort zone within their vocal range, and it's usually sort of low to mid-range. Although, as I say, it's different for everyone. So you will know where your comfort zone is, where you don't have to put in much effort to sing. So it's comfort zone singing. It's easy singing. Like the singing is not very athletic. This is where you use suspension. This is enough support to sustain you through that section. And then we build on top of suspension. So this is an addition to suspension. This is called locking down. This is when singing becomes more athletic, or we go outside of our comfort zone. When we move outside of our comfort zone, we need to start doing something called locking down. Now, locking down is the press and spread of our abdominal muscles. As I say, this is for more athletic singing, or when we go outside of our comfort zone. It's the feeling of locking down is like going to the toilet. It's that press. It's not a real strained push, but it's a really gentle press and spread of the abdominals. It just gives an extra boost to the suspension. So for the most part, those two support systems are going to sustain you through a lot of singing. And you'll go between both of them in many songs. So you might start out with just suspension, and then you got to add in the locking down, and then you go back to suspension. So it's not very often that you'll just use one throughout the entire song. You'll be going between the two. The last one is called anchoring. And this is for belting, for really top notes, really extreme notes that need every ounce of support that you can give them. So anchoring is the shoulder blades. So it is a down and in of the shoulder blades. It's a really gentle down and in of the shoulder blades. And once more, this is in addition to suspension and locking down. So you're already suspending and locking down, but now you're adding on anchoring. Just as an overarching rule for support, we never support on the in-breath. We never support breathe in, breathe out. It's always breathe in, support, breathe out. Continuing the support on the out-breath. Breathing in after you've supported will increase the tension, increase the tightness that you feel. And again, that tension is going to come up into your neck, and then potentially, if you keep doing it, will cause damage. So always support on the out breath, never the in breath. Let's talk resonating spaces. So you have two resonating spaces, your mouth and your throat. So when we sing, when we vocalize, sound waves are formed in our larynx. They're formed by our vocal folds vibrating together. And those sound waves can be manipulated in our throat and in our mouth. In general, we want to have an open mouth and an open throat. That is what every singer should learn first off, is to get the throat and the mouth open. How do we do that? Really, really simple. Let's look at the mouth first. We can just open our mouth. If you have an issue with mumbling, or maybe your accent is not very open, you tend to speak at the back of your mouth, I encourage you to work on your diction to get everything forward, so you're speaking right at the front of your mouth, and that you overpronounce every single word. It's going to feel really weird, but I promise you it's not going to look weird. Quite often, if you overdo things, that you think you're overdoing things, it doesn't look like you're overdoing it. So I really encourage you to maybe look at your diction. Try and start to speak from the front of your mouth and overpronounce your words when you're singing. And even try it when you're speaking as well. Some people have an issue with a really tight jaw. I know that for me, I often catch myself clenching my jaw, and I have to release that tension. A really, really cool way to do that, really easy way to do that, comes from Alexander Technique expert Eileen Troberman. She has a thing called the whispered R, and it's so simple but so effective, and I use it with all my students. So when you breathe in, on the out breath, you release the jaw and say, and it's so simple. You just let the jaw drop and you whisper an ah. So again, it's breathe in and that's all it is. You do that a few times, it just lets the jaw drop, helps release that tension. And then there's the trusty massaging the jaw. Just let it go slack and give it a good massage. One last thing you can do to open your mouth, your resonating space, is to lift your cheeks. Lifting your cheeks is going to really open that space out. It's going to allow for ringing. It's going to brighten the sound. And your timbre, your tone, your color will be warmer. It's like with the throat. Again, it's really simple to open the throat up. Try a yawn. Or a laugh. Or even surprise. These are all things that will help you open that throat and really show you how it should feel. And why is it so important that we get these two spaces open? Resonance is so important to singing. Resonance affects how your sound comes out. Resonance affects the color, the timbre, your tone. It affects your tuning. And if those spaces are closed, you have less control over how much comes out. You have less control over the tone and the pitch. So the more open we can get, the more control we have over that. And then once you have mastered the openness, then you can start playing around with closing and opening it. Because some styles and some characters, some songs might require a slightly different sound. But as a default position, open is always best. So work at getting a mouth and the throat open. So let's talk about one last thing. The Singers Kinesphere, or filling your space with sound. Many people, and I am one of them, was taught to project sound, to hit the wall with sound, go to the back of the room, throw your sound to the back of the room. And I understand why we were taught that. They wanted us to sing out of ourselves, sing a bit louder. But at the end of the day, it can lead to strain, to pushing, to tension, to yelling and shouting, and which can lead to unnecessary tension and damage. So instead, we need to think about filling the space that we occupy. Last year I did a course on belting, better belting by Rhea King, and she has an amazing book called Better Belting, and she has a whole section on this, the Singers Kinesphere, and she talks about the Singers Kinesphere being likened to a bell. So when a bell is struck by the clapper inside, the bell just rings out in 360 and it lets its space resonate. So as singers, we should think like a bell. Our kinesphere is the space in which we inhabit, is the bell, and we are the voice, are the clapper. So we hit the side of our kinesphere with sound, and then we let that kinesphere do the rest of the work. It encourages 360-degree singing, which doesn't lead to pushing or tension. It leads to exploring the space a bit more and using our sound a bit more safely, more economically as well. We're not trying to push out sound. We're just filling the space we occupy. So when I say the space we occupy, this is our reach from fingertip to fingertip, side to side, up and down, forward and back, and all the space in between. This is the Singers Kinesphere. I will be going into this in more depth in a later video as well, so stay tuned for that. But it is something to think about, filling the space that you occupy rather than just pushing everything forward, trying to hit the back of the room. I promise you, it's a much safer way of singing. The last thing I want to say is I really encourage you to do a body scan regularly before you sing. If you've never done a body scan, this is going from foot to head or head to toe, and checking over every major point for tight places and trying to let the tightness go, let the tension go. I understand that there are some areas that need manipulation to be released, and so you can't just think them away, you can't just go, let go, and it will go. But a lot of the times we're just we're just flexing our knees, or we're clenching our buttocks, or we've raised our shoulders. So it's just going through our body regularly, checking over where we're holding tension and trying to let that go, because tension is detrimental to a singer. So any time that you can try and let some of that go is so good. So I do encourage you, scan over your body regularly and let go of any tension that you can, and maybe seek some professional help if you are really tense, especially here in the neck, because any really tight places is going to really be a detriment to your singing. So there you have it. These are all the things that you need to take into account before you start singing. So check over your alignment, your breathing, your support, your resonating spaces. Fill that space you occupy with sound, and check over your body regularly for tension. I'm so glad you joined me today, and I really hope you found this useful, and I will see you again soon. Bye.